Why you always have mucus in your throat. Doctor explains the real cause. Take a moment right now to observe a simple, involuntary action. Swallow once, just one deliberate swallow, and truly pay attention to the sensation at the back of your throat. Is there a lingering feeling, a noticeable thickness, or a persistent coating that resists all efforts to clear it, no matter how many times you've tried this morning? For many, this sensation is not an isolated incident, but a pervasive part of daily life, a constant irritant that has crept into their routines without a clear beginning. You might find yourself clearing your throat dozens of times each day, a habit that started subtly, perhaps just in the mornings, then gradually extended to become an all-day companion. This often leads to carrying water everywhere you go, meticulously avoiding certain foods, and exhaustively trying every home remedy suggested by well-meaning neighbors and relatives. Yet the problem stubbornly remains. It is crucial to understand this fundamental truth, that persistent mucus is not random, nor is it simply an unavoidable consequence of aging. Your body is an intricate system, and its actions are rarely arbitrary. Every lingering symptom, especially one as pervasive as chronic throat mucus, serves as a specific communication from your body, a signal indicating an underlying issue. The true challenge lies in learning how to interpret these signals effectively, and this comprehensive discussion aims to equip you with that very knowledge. In my extensive experience working with older adults in preventive health, I have repeatedly observed that persistent throat mucus is one of the most frequently misunderstood and mismanaged symptoms. Far too often, individuals are merely given temporary solutions like lozenges, advised to drink more water without a deeper explanation, or simply dismissed, leaving the actual fundamental cause quietly unaddressed beneath the surface. Today, our goal is to decisively change that trajectory. We will embark on a detailed exploration of 5 distinct research-supported causes of persistent throat mucus, specifically in adults over the age of 55, delving into the biological mechanisms behind each. Furthermore, we will illuminate a critical insight that most conventional discussions on this topic overlook, which 2 of these causes are almost invariably working in tandem within your body at this very moment, and how their insidious combination significantly exacerbates the entire problem. As Dr. Franklin, working in preventive health and senior wellness, my unwavering commitment to this community is always consistent: to provide plain, accessible language grounded in real, robust research and actionable, practical steps that you can implement starting as early as tonight. Before we proceed further, I encourage you to share your experience by commenting below. Is your throat mucus noticeably worse first thing in the morning, or does it persist throughout the entire day? Your response to this seemingly simple question provides a remarkable amount of insight into the primary drivers of this issue in your unique physiology. Please write morning or all day in the comments. I personally read every single one. Now, let us delve into the foundational biological principle that most people have never been fully informed about, a piece of knowledge that fundamentally transforms your understanding of this entire problem. Your body is a marvel of constant activity, perpetually producing mucus every single day, non-stop, around the clock. This continuous production is not only entirely normal, but absolutely essential for your health. Mucus serves as your body's primary protective coating for your delicate airways, acting as a vigilant trap for bacteria, dust particles, and viruses, preventing them from settling deeper into your lungs where they could cause significant damage. Beyond its defensive role, mucus also plays a vital part in maintaining the delicate tissue lining your throat, keeping it optimally moist and resilient. Without this crucial mucinous layer, your airways would quickly dry out, crack, and become alarmingly vulnerable to every single pathogen you encounter. Therefore, mucus itself is fundamentally not the problem. The issue arises from what happens to that mucus as we navigate the aging process. Here is a critical finding, consistently confirmed by extensive research, yet rarely communicated by healthcare professionals. Your body possesses an elegant, self-cleaning system known as mucociliary clearance. Your airways are intricately lined with millions of microscopic, hair-like structures called cilia. Their tireless job, executed millions of times daily without your conscious awareness, is to rhythmically sweep mucus upward and outward, ensuring it remains thin, mobile, and never accumulates to problematic levels. In a younger adult, this mucociliary system operates with remarkable efficiency and speed. Mucus is produced and cleared almost instantaneously. However, numerous studies unequivocally confirm that as we age, these vital cilia progressively slow down. They beat less frequently, resulting in mucus that would have been swiftly cleared in mere seconds at age 40, pooling and accumulating for hours at age 65 or 70. The practical implication of this physiological change is profound. Any factor that encourages your body to produce excess mucus will have a more pronounced and prolonged effect in an older adult compared to a younger individual. This is not a complaint about aging, but a simple statement of physiology, and understanding this foundational principle is absolutely essential for comprehending everything else we will discuss today. With this crucial context established, let us now meticulously examine the 5 primary causes. I urge you to listen with particular care, as I will identify which of these causes tend to combine and amplify each other's effects. The first cause demands your closest attention, as research consistently highlights it as the most frequently overlooked explanation for persistent throat mucus within this specific age group. It is medically termed laryngopharyngeal reflux, a phrase you may never have encountered before. Allow me to explain it in straightforward, clear language. Most people are familiar with the sensation of heartburn, that characteristic burning discomfort in the chest often experienced after a heavy meal, which is the classic presentation of acid reflux. However, there exists a more subtle, insidious version of this problem, one that manifests without any chest burning, without any obvious digestive discomfort whatsoever, presenting instead solely as a persistently irritated throat that simply refuses to settle. Here is the underlying mechanism. At the crucial junction where your esophagus connects to your stomach, there is a muscular ring, essentially a valve. Its sole, vital purpose is to remain tightly closed after you consume food, effectively sealing stomach acid away where it rightfully belongs. As we age, this muscular valve can gradually lose its tone, much like an elastic band that has been stretched beyond its capacity too many times. When this valve fails to close completely, even minute amounts of stomach acid begin to make their way upward, not just into the esophagus, but all the way up into the throat, reaching the delicate voice box and occasionally even extending into the nasal passages. Now, here is the critical biological detail that renders this phenomenon so significant. The sensitive tissues of your throat are simply not anatomically designed to withstand acid in the same resilient way your esophagus is. Even the slightest trace of acid making contact with your throat triggers an immediate and robust protective response. Your body instinctively rushes to produce thick, copious mucus to coat and shield that irritated, vulnerable tissue. This is a perfectly logical biological defense mechanism, but when this reflux is occurring subtly, night after night, while you are asleep, you awaken every single morning to that familiar, unpleasant heaviness at the back of your throat, completely unaware of its origin. This confusion arises precisely because there is no accompanying heartburn, no chest pain, and no other overt clue pointing directly to your stomach as the source. Research published in prominent clinical ENT literature indicates that up to half of individuals experiencing this condition report absolutely no heartburn, presenting instead with chronic throat clearing, a voice that sounds noticeably rough or hoarse in the mornings, and mucus that begins to accumulate almost immediately upon waking. I urge you to honestly reflect on these questions. Is your throat significantly worse in the morning compared to later in the day? Does the sensation worsen when you bend forward or lie down? Has your voice sounded subtly different or rougher when you first wake up? These are the characteristic fingerprints of silent reflux. When we arrive at the practical action plan, I will provide you with highly specific, actionable steps that can begin to make a noticeable difference as early as tonight. One additional crucial note here warrants your careful attention. If you regularly take anti-inflammatory medications for conditions such as joint pain, examples include ibuprofen or naproxen. Robust peer-reviewed research has unequivocally established that this class of medications actively reduces the body's natural protective mechanisms for the stomach lining. This significantly increases the likelihood of acid reflux, including its silent variant, occurring or worsening existing symptoms. If you regularly use these medications and have been persistently bothered by throat symptoms, it is imperative that you specifically bring this connection to the attention of your prescribing doctor. Before we continue, please take a brief moment to tell me your name and where you are tuning in from. I genuinely make an effort to go through the comments, as I truly want to know who I am speaking to and supporting through this information. The second significant cause often arrives quietly and, for that very reason, frequently goes unnoticed. When people typically envision sinus problems, their minds often conjure images of the dramatic, acute version: intense facial pressure, a throbbing forehead, a completely blocked nose, the archetypal, picture-perfect sinus infection. However, in many adults over the age of 55, chronic sinus inflammation manifests in an almost invisible manner. Breathing may feel largely unimpaired, there might be no significant headache, and yet the sinuses, mildly swollen and continuously producing slightly more mucus than normal, are steadily and silently draining down the back of the throat throughout the day. This phenomenon is clinically known as postnasal drip, and a compelling 2024 study confirmed that the average age of patients presenting with this condition is precisely 55 years old. This correlation is not a mere coincidence, but directly relevant to your age group. Here lies a particularly frustrating aspect. Many individuals grappling with this subtle chronic inflammation have been diligently taking over-the-counter antihistamines from the pharmacy for months, mistakenly assuming their symptoms are due to seasonal allergies. There is a clear physiological reason why this particular strategy often yields disappointing results. Antihistamines temporarily dry out existing mucus, which might offer fleeting relief, but they fundamentally do nothing to address the underlying inflammation within the sinuses that is perpetually driving the excess mucus production. Furthermore, mucus that has been dried and thickened and subsequently becomes stuck at the back of your throat is often more uncomfortable and irritating than the original, thinner postnasal drip. The approach, consistently backed by the strongest body of research evidence, is remarkably simple, highly affordable, and highly effective. Regular nasal rinsing using a warm saline solution. A comprehensive 2025 clinical review published in the prestigious journal Medicina, which meticulously surveyed evidence across a broad spectrum of sinonasal conditions, unequivocally concluded that nasal irrigation is an effective, safe, and exceptionally low-cost strategy for both treating and preventing upper respiratory tract diseases. It is widely endorsed as a crucial adjunctive treatment by leading ENT specialists across the globe. High-volume saline rinses exert their beneficial effects by physically removing inflammatory mucus, significantly reducing mucosal swelling within the sinus passages, and crucially, improving the natural ciliary clearance function that we discussed earlier, precisely the system that regrettably declines with age. The single most important word in the entire process of nasal rinsing is consistency. Engaging in one or two uses might provide a day or two of very mild, transient relief. However, consistent daily practice, meticulously applied, produces cumulative, profound, and meaningful improvement over time. I will guide you through the precise method in the upcoming action plan. If you are still following along and finding this information valuable, please type the number 2 in the comments section so I know you are present and engaged. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to this channel. Your support is invaluable and keeps us going. Now, cause number 3 is often where I witness the most genuine surprise on people's faces when I introduce it. This is because when patients consult with me and we begin to systematically explore the potential causes for their persistent throat symptoms. Their medications, those very pills they have been faithfully taking for months or even years, are simply not something they instinctively think to question. There is a widely prescribed class of blood pressure medications known as ACE inhibitors, which stands for angiotensin-converting enzyme inhibitors. These medications are prescribed millions of times annually, are generally effective, typically well tolerated in most aspects, and serve a genuinely important therapeutic purpose in managing hypertension. However, they carry a recognized class-wide side effect that clinical research clearly and consistently documents. ACE inhibitors work by allowing a substance called bradykinin to accumulate within the body. In a significant proportion of people, studies report this affects between 5% and 20% of users. This accumulation of bradykinin triggers persistent throat irritation and an ongoing, often uncontrollable, urge to clear the throat. Crucially, it is vital to understand that this is not an allergic reaction, nor is it indicative of something unusual or abnormal occurring within your body. It is simply an inherent mechanism of how the drug functions, and your throat tissues happen to be particularly sensitive to this specific effect. Here is the particular detail that leads to this important connection being missed so frequently. The development of this side effect can take weeks or even several months to manifest after an individual begins taking the medication. Therefore, if you started a new blood pressure pill 8 months ago and your throat symptoms began bothering you around 6 months ago, you might never have intuitively connected these two seemingly disparate events. Yet, that precise timing alignment is exactly the pattern that robust research consistently describes. A large-scale study involving more than 27,000 patients revealed that adults over the age of 65 had a significantly higher 53% increased odds of experiencing this throat-related side effect compared to younger users. This finding is of particular relevance and importance to this specific audience. If you are currently taking a blood pressure medication and are uncertain whether it belongs to the ACE inhibitor class, your pharmacist can readily provide you with this information in less than a minute. If it is indeed an ACE inhibitor, there are highly effective alternative medication categories such as ARBs, angiotensin receptor blockers, which control blood pressure equally well and crucially do not carry this specific bradykinin-related side effect. Having an open and informed conversation with your prescribing doctor about this potential alternative is absolutely worthwhile. If you are still watching and absorbing this information, please type the word clarity in the comments, because that is precisely what I aim for this video to provide you with. The fourth cause is one that often surprises people, not because it is inherently complex, but precisely because it is something they might have dismissed as being too obvious, too simple, or too basic to truly matter. This cause is hydration. However, let me elaborate on the underlying physiology, as this is often not what most people typically perceive it to be. Your mucus is, in its fundamental composition, predominantly water. Its consistency, whether it remains thin and fluid, allowing for easy movement, or becomes thick, sticky, and challenging to clear, is directly and profoundly related to how well hydrated the surrounding bodily tissues are. Here is the clearest analogy I can offer. Consider fresh maple syrup poured directly from the bottle versus maple syrup that has been left open and exposed overnight. Both are the same fundamental substance, yet their behaviors and consistencies are dramatically different. Your body's mucus behaves in precisely the same manner, with its state being intimately dependent on your overall hydration status. Now, here is the specific age-related nuance that elevates this beyond a mere simplistic reminder to drink more water. Extensive research has clearly established that the body's thirst mechanism becomes significantly less reliable and less sensitive as we age. A younger adult typically feels a sensation of thirst well before they reach a state of meaningful dehydration. In older adults, however, this crucial early warning system is often blunted. This means you can be sufficiently dehydrated to noticeably affect your mucus consistency and compromise your daily comfort without experiencing any particular sensation of thirst whatsoever. Waiting for thirst to prompt you to drink means you are consistently operating behind the curve in a perpetual state of mild dehydration. This mildly dehydrated state, maintained day after day, persistently keeps your mucus thick and sticky, exacerbating and amplifying every other factor we have discussed today. A practical fluid target, widely referenced in clinical nutrition guidelines, is approximately 30 milliliters per kilogram of body weight per day, encompassing fluids from all sources. This includes plain water, herbal teas, soups, and water-rich foods, all of which contribute to reaching that target. The crucial behavioral key, however, is deliberate, consistent fluid intake spread throughout the day, rather than attempting to catch up only when you finally feel thirsty. If you are still with us and finding this explanation helpful, please type the number 4 in the comments. If you haven't yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so you won't miss any valuable future videos. The fifth and final cause is one that is rarely, if ever, discussed in videos or articles of this nature, and I believe this represents a significant informational gap. This is because for a meaningful proportion of older adults who contend with persistent throat mucus, the fundamental root of the problem is not situated within the throat itself, nor in the sinuses, nor even in the stomach. Instead, the origin lies much further downstream, within the intricate environment of the gut. Here is what the compelling research unequivocally demonstrates. Your complex digestive tract and your respiratory system share intricate regulatory pathways, mediated through the powerful influence of the immune system and the pervasive nervous system. The overall health and balance of your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms residing within your intestines, directly influences how reactive and how inflamed your upper airways are. When the delicate balance of this gut microbiome is disrupted, a state that researchers refer to as dysbiosis, it can actively trigger and activate immune responses that promote the overproduction of mucus in the airways. This occurs not because there is anything physically or structurally wrong with your throat, but rather because the gut is sending systemic inflammatory signals that the respiratory system then responds to. This intricate connection, often termed the gut-lung axis, is a vibrant and rapidly growing area of cutting-edge clinical research. Multiple rigorous, peer-reviewed studies, including groundbreaking research published in the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine and the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology, have consistently confirmed that disruption of the gut microbiome can indeed trigger immune responses that profoundly promote airway inflammation. Animal model studies have taken this even further. When mice received gut microbiome transplants from human patients suffering from chronic lung disease, those mice subsequently demonstrated measurably increased airway mucus production, unequivocally demonstrating a direct causal link between gut health and the physiological events occurring in your airways. So, what precisely disrupts the delicate gut microbiome in older adults? Common culprits include a diet consistently low in fiber and fermented foods, repeated courses of antibiotics administered over the years, high sugar intake, and chronic, unmanaged stress. These are not exotic or unusual factors. Tragically, they describe the daily reality for a very large proportion of older adults. You simply cannot effectively fix a gut-airway axis problem with a temporary throat lozenge. However, you can meaningfully begin to support and restore your gut microbiome through consistent, conscious daily dietary and lifestyle choices, and I will include practical guidance for this in the comprehensive action plan. Before I present the full action plan, I need to take a moment for a genuinely important and serious consideration. Most of the time, persistent throat mucus in older adults, while certainly bothersome and impacting quality of life, is benign. It is precisely what we have been meticulously discussing today: manageable, addressable, and fundamentally not dangerous. However, it is crucial to remember that your body sometimes utilizes symptoms as urgent signals to indicate something that absolutely requires professional medical attention rather than self-management. Therefore, please make an appointment with your doctor promptly and without delay if you observe any of the following specific warning signs. mucus that is consistently tinged with blood, even a very small amount. Difficulty swallowing that is gradually and progressively worsening over time. Unexplained weight loss occurring in conjunction with your throat. Symptoms: the presence of a new lump or persistent swelling in your neck region, or a significant unexplained voice change that shows no improvement over time. These particular signs extend beyond the scope and territory of today's conversation and demand immediate medical evaluation. Please do not attempt to self-diagnose or work around these symptoms. Bring them directly to the attention of your doctor. Now let us transition to the highly anticipated action plan. This is the crucial segment where all the valuable information we have covered translates into tangible, practical steps that you can genuinely implement starting tonight. To address potential silent reflux, begin by consistently stopping all eating at least 3 full hours before you intend to lie down for sleep. When you eat and then immediately recline, your stomach is still actively engaged in the complex process of digestion, and the critical valve we discussed earlier faces its most significant challenge in remaining securely closed. Maintaining 3 hours of upright posture after your last meal is one of the most rigorously evidence-supported behavioral interventions for effectively reducing nighttime silent reflux. Furthermore, subtly elevate the head of your bed. Critically, this does not mean simply piling extra pillows under your head, which only serves to unnaturally bend your neck and can worsen symptoms. Instead, use a firm wedge strategically placed under the headboard legs or directly beneath the mattress. Even a modest incline of just a few centimeters effectively utilizes gravity to your advantage, meaningfully reducing the amount of stomach acid that can passively travel toward your throat while you sleep. To support overnight hydration, make it a habit to drink a full glass of warm water before you sleep tonight. This simple, effortless act supports optimal overnight hydration and actively helps to keep your mucus thinner, thereby making morning accumulation less severe and easier to manage. Tomorrow morning, before you consume any coffee or breakfast, drink 1 to 2 glasses of plain warm water. This single, cost-free habit immediately initiates the rehydration of your body and begins to loosen the overnight accumulation of mucus before it has the chance to become your pervasive morning discomfort. It is consistently reported as one of the most impactful and easily adopted changes people make. This week, make it a priority to acquire a nasal rinsing device from your local pharmacy. Options include a neti pot or a convenient squeeze-style bottle. Crucially, use water that has been boiled and then cooled to a comfortable warm temperature. Never use straight tap water, as it can contain harmful microorganisms. Add a small pinch of plain, non-iodized salt, and optionally a very small pinch of bicarbonate of soda, baking soda, which may further aid in thinning mucus by gently neutralizing nasal acidity. Use this device once daily, preferably as part of your morning routine. Give it a full 2 weeks of consistent daily use before you definitively judge its effectiveness. Consistency is the critical differentiator between individuals who report that it worked wonderfully and those who claim it yielded no benefit. To address potential medication-related issues, schedule an appointment specifically to review your entire medication list in relation to your persistent throat symptoms. Arrive prepared with a carefully written timeline. Specifically, when did your throat symptoms first begin, and when did you last start or change any medication? Bringing this detailed chronology will be immensely helpful. If you take a blood pressure medication, directly ask your doctor or pharmacist whether it is an ACE inhibitor and whether an alternative medication in the ARB class might be a more appropriate option for your specific circumstances. To proactively begin supporting your gut-airway connection, integrate 1 small daily serving of a fermented food into your routine. Excellent choices include plain yogurt with live active cultures, kefir, or a small portion of kimchi or sauerkraut. These conscious dietary choices begin to diversify and support the health of your gut microbiome in ways that research directly links to a gradual reduction in airway inflammation over time. It is important to recognize that this is a long-term strategy, not an instantaneous overnight fix. However, it is precisely these long-term, consistent strategies that genuinely alter your physiological baseline for improved health. Set regular hydration reminders throughout your day. Keep water readily accessible in every room where you spend significant time, and consciously increase your intake of water-rich whole foods, such as cucumbers, watermelons, brothy soups, and herbal teas. Your mucus consistency and throat comfort will demonstrably improve within a matter of days. A brief but important word on popular home remedies, as I am well aware that many of you have likely tried some of them. Honey is genuinely soothing for irritated throat tissue. It is not harmful and can indeed calm symptoms temporarily, providing comfort, but it does not fundamentally address any of the 5 underlying causes we have discussed today. Regarding dairy, it is a common misconception that dairy products create mucus from nothing. The scientific evidence does not support this claim. However, some individuals do find that dairy proteins can create a sensation of increased thickness or stickiness in existing mucus. If you observe a consistent pattern, a carefully conducted 2 to 3 week reduction trial of dairy can be a worthwhile personal experiment. Apple cider vinegar is a frequently suggested remedy online, but for anyone who may be experiencing silent reflux, introducing additional acid into the digestive system can actually significantly aggravate the underlying problem. Please exercise caution and discernment in that regard. Here is the most crucial takeaway I want you to internalize today: that persistent, bothersome mucus coating the back of your throat has a specific, identifiable reason. In fact, there are typically 5 interconnected possible reasons, and the unfortunate reality is that most individuals living with this problem have never had a single one of them properly explained to them. These reasons include silent reflux subtly occurring while you sleep, completely devoid of the warning signs of heartburn, postnasal drip resulting from low-level chronic sinus inflammation that never announces itself dramatically, medication-related throat irritation, specifically from ACE inhibitors, often developing months after starting a medication and consequently never being correctly connected to the drug, chronic mild dehydration operating just below the threshold that triggers obvious thirst, and gut microbiome disruption actively sending inflammatory signals to which your airways are responding. None of these conditions require you to simply accept a life characterized by constant throat clearing and discomfort. Each one has a practical, evidence-grounded response, and none of the crucial first steps require a prescription or a specialist consultation. What they do require is knowledge, consistent effort, and a willingness to treat your symptoms as valuable signals worth responding to, rather than merely an annoying nuisance to be temporarily managed. If someone has ever dismissively told you that this is just a part of getting older, I sincerely hope that today's discussion has provided you with a completely different perspective and a more empowering lens through which to view your health. You are not simply aging, you are dealing with specific, identifiable, and entirely addressable physiological mechanisms, and you absolutely deserve to know that. Please ensure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. I have an upcoming video that will delve very soon into precisely how gut health intricately connects to the chronic inflammation patterns that drive some of the most common complaints I hear from adults in this age group. That is a conversation you truly will not want to miss. If this video has provided you with something genuinely useful and impactful today, would you consider sharing it with just one person you know who has been quietly grappling with this very same problem? That single share costs you nothing, yet it possesses the profound potential to genuinely shift how that person understands and approaches their own body and health. And before you depart, please take a moment to tell me in the comments, which of these 5 causes surprised you the most, and for how long have you personally been dealing with this issue? I meticulously read every comment personally because this is a real ongoing conversation, and your individual experience truly matters here. Take excellent care of yourself.